Thank you for joining us wherever you are. This podcast episode is brought to you by the Old Ways Actual Play Team. This actual play uses the 7th edition Call of Cthulhu tabletop role-playing game rules by Chaosium. This actual play is performed by adults and in an adult setting. While we try very hard to stick to language for all ages, listeners should know that this podcast may include mature themes. All content, including names, places, events, companies, and etc., that may bear resemblance to entities living or dead, is strictly coincidental. My name is Michael Diamond, and for tonight's game, I will be your keeper. Thank you for joining us again on another episode of the Old Ways podcast. We return to our European campaign, Horror on the Orient Express. I have gathered our investigators again for another session for you to enjoy. So we will get things started shortly, but before that, we will do introductions. To my right.
Hello, I'm Mike, and I'm playing James Robert Fraser.
And to his right.
Hi, I'm Rena. I play Lady Elizabeth Fitzroy, and I've just had a bunch of delicious chocolates.
Indeed you have. Indeed you have. At the end of the table.
Hi, I'm Giles, and I'm playing Simon Griffith, and I'm currently in a Peter Sellers movie.
You know, we all are in some way, I think. To Simon's right.
Hi, I'm Miranda, and I'm playing Maggie Bellinger, and I think the Duke's about to be my new best friend.
Time will tell. And last but most certainly not least.
I'm Martin, I'm playing Richard Courtney, and I think the coffee on my trousers has finally dried.
Perhaps it has. I mean, the Chocolates Cafe, all of the accoutrement therein, sure smell better than that taxidermy shop did. We raise the curtain tonight in the streets of Lausanne with one feisty Margaret Bellinger who is easily keeping up with the pace that the Duke makes as his rather well-dressed form steps through the early morning hours of the streets of Lausanne. So, how close are you getting, Maggie?
I would say fairly close, and I would probably actually be calling out to him and maybe waving a bit. Sir, Mr. Duke, excuse me.
He slows down. Not difficult for him in this bit of a hilly area. There's a bit of a rise to the streets here. You can see beyond where he's walked, towards where he's walking, there's a massive cathedral on a bit of a terrace there. He turns around.
Hello, I was just speaking with Mr. Wellington, and he mentioned that you might be the exact person to show me around town. I'm not sure if you would mind or if you'd be interested.
Of course.
He gestures in a bit of a bow.
I would be happy to shepherd you around Lausanne.
Oh, thank you. This is my first time traveling abroad, and I must admit I'm a little bit lost.
I am Duke Esseintes. I would be happy to show you. You said you were speaking with Mr. Wellington. May I inquire as to what matter?
Yes, I believe we actually have a shared interest in a certain scroll that Mr. Wellington is in possession of.
Ah, I see. Well, there's no reason to be unfriendly. Perhaps I can show you about town and show you Lausanne, and we can make the evening negotiations a bit more agreeable.
Yes, I think that would be quite nice.
Well, shall we begin?
Yes, of course. And I'll kind of put my hand out to maybe take his arm, see if he'll offer.
He offers his arm, and the two of you begin strolling towards the cathedral. Mr. Fraser, you're just about to get around the corner where Maggie had gotten to. You'd slowed your pace a little bit because you don't want to spook this Duke, whomever he is. And as you kind of poke your head around that corner a little bit, you see that the two of them are now walking arm in arm.
Okay, so I want to try and follow them discreetly. I don't want to be seen following them, so I'll slip into doorways, I'll look into a shop window, just anything that makes it not apparent that I'm actually in active pursuit of them. But I want to, as well, if possible, if I can get close enough to catch a snippet of what they're talking about, because I'm working on the basis that Maggie doesn't know how dangerous this man is, and she is, if not walking into a trap, she's walking into a position where it's going to be very potentially very dangerous for her. So I want to make sure that I'm near at hand.
If you want to be able to hear what they might chat about as they walk, it's going to be a stealth roll for certain.
Yeah, sure.
And if you're making a stealth roll, then I'm absolutely going to offer Maggie a spot hidden roll. Because
Perfect.
it's possible that during their walk up the street here, her head may go from right to left as she's looking at these shops down the streets of Lausanne. And she may possibly notice the rather unique figure of one James Robert Fraser.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So please.
Look it up. I shall make a stealth roll then. That is 35 under 69, so that's a hard success for my stealth.
37 over 31, so
Okay.
a fail for me.
Fair enough. Just one more roll to make then.
Mm-hmm.
For Mr. Duke's name I can't pronounce.
Mr. Duke.
The two of them continue on. They don't seem to notice your smooth and agile movements.
Just add a character. Would I have the opportunity to be able to tell whether I think that they've noticed me as well? If not, that's because I'll be focusing more on being discreet. But
Sure. I think if you're pretty well focused on being discreet, then you're probably not going to be able to do both.
that's fine.
But I'd say if you want a hard int roll, I'll give you the opportunity.
Oh right, okay. I was going to use it.
So if you
Expecting a hard spot hidden or something, but yeah, okay. Yep.
I see it as you having to assess the situation.
Sure, no problem. I'm looking at a 30 here no, I did not succeed in that. So it's a successful int roll, but it was not a hard success.
You don't get any visual tells that they've not noticed you. But so far, they haven't turned around. The Duke continues on at a fairly even pace, Maggie. He has a rather specific smell to him. It is something that is quite manly, pleasant. It's a bit strong as far as its range of male colognes. You're not sure how many times he's bathed in it today,
Okay.
but it's definitely something. I don't know. I suppose it depends on what Maggie prefers as far as colognes go, but
Leather and tobacco.
yeah, well,
Maggie likes.
sort of. Like in my mind, if you're at all familiar with male colognes, it probably smells a lot like Drakkar,
Okay.
because that's probably like where I fit it
Mm-hmm.
template wise in my mind. So it's
okay.
definitely strong. It's definitely male. But yeah, there's probably like a bit of woodsy, kind of tobacco-y, almost rum smell to him.
That sounds good. Maggie probably wouldn't mind, and she definitely wouldn't point it out or if even if it was overpowering for Maggie, she would do her best to not make it known that she noticed. She would be very polite about things.
So you two take a trip up the street to the cathedral.
Mm-hmm.
So the cathedral incline from where you're at is pretty significant. As you move along the route here, you probably go up about 190 total steps. It's quite the move up. And the Duke doesn't, even with his size, the Duke seems well fitted for this type of move.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't seem to sweat or bother under the physical exertion. He shows you
where the previous town portions used to be. He traces it back through history. And even as you go up, if you stop and kind of look back along down to the lower parts of Lausanne, it's very pretty. There's a very Alps feel to it. Mountains. The air is a bit thinner up here.
You seem quite accustomed to the altitude. I'm from an area that's closer to sea level. This is a little exhausting for me.
I'm happy to let you catch your breath.
Thank you. It is very beautiful up here.
It's a huge Gothic edifice, this cathedral too.
Yeah.
So it is almost wraparound framed by this Swiss town.
Mm-hmm.
He tells you it was built between 1235 and 1275. It took them several decades to complete the structure. Consecrated by Pope Gregory the 10th. Tons of stained glass. It's everything that you would imagine a European Gothic cathedral to be, and more. Yeah. And as you continue your way up the stairs, he pays the 35 centimes for admission for the both of you. And you get to walk in a rather cool, as far as temperature goes, Gothic cathedral. You're from America, then?
Oh, yes, I am.
How are you finding Europe?
It's very different from what I'm used to. Quite beautiful, though. So far, I started out in England visiting my aunt, and since then I've been traveling across Europe.
I've heard America's quite a wild country.
Yes, some could say that runs in our blood.
But the last name, your Americanized name,
Yeah.
it must stem from somewhere in France.
Yes, I believe so. I don't know much of my family's history, though, unfortunately.
Interesting. He steps down the way, and you go through and see some series of statues. He points out a statue here for the statue appears to be an older gentleman whose hands have been cut off. It's one of the oldest statues here, he says. Otho, the grandson.
Why are his hands missing?
It's a long tail. He seems to almost lovingly pat the base of the statue.
Uh-huh. It's weird.
Why don't you give me a no roll?
Okay. Success.
I see that. You've rolled a 69 under 70. You get kind of taken aback a bit as you walk through the back portion of the cathedral here.
Yeah.
A lot of the stonework here seems to be far older than that era he spoke of, the 1200s or so. You're just seeing some of the older history books in your schooling and remembering some of the geological stuff. This cathedral likely was built on something far older than that.
Does he seem to be leading me away from populated areas?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Perfect. You certainly seem to be quite the historian. Is that of great interest to you?
Well, of course. I think it's important to know where you come from.
Yes, this stonework here seems quite old, older than what we've seen so far.
He looks down at it. Wouldn't be uncommon for the church to perhaps remove older religions and place their own?
Yes, and I know sometimes in modern history too, structures are built on top of one another or possibly destroyed or lost and rebuilt.
Possibly. He smiles. Come, there's much to show you in the city. So, as you watched them go up this long 160 staircase, Mr. Fraser, at what point would you have begun to follow them? Because at this point, you'd be wide in the open.
I will make sure that I am not so far away from them that if the Duke tried anything on, I would be able to pick up speed and catch up to them fairly quickly. So that there will come a point where I'm going to need to become a tourist walking up to the to the cathedral, unless I think there is potentially another way to skirt round, possibly a couple of side streets, and maybe get ahead of them and watch them pass by a side street up the stairs, if that's feasible.
I mean, it's possible. Cathedral is built on this terrace, so you would know just by looking at it. There's only so many places they'd be likely to go afterwards, having seen the Traveler's Guide.
Yeah. So having seen the Traveler's Guide, is there like a map of the city in the Traveler's Guide as well? Yeah.
Yeah, there is. It's a small map, but you get one in effect.
Okay. Well, in which case, having looked at the map, then I would know the layout of the city, and as Mr. Fraser is particularly good at recalling things that he's seen and read. So what I will try and do is I will try and follow them at a discreet distance, perhaps nipping in and out of side streets as I think is necessary.
So while that is going on, Simon, how are you treating your tailing of Mr. Fraser? Or are you going to close distance with him and try to reconnect your buddy cop movie?
Actually, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to keep tailing him. I figure two people would be more obvious than one. So I'm going to close to him where I'm close enough for where he could potentially see me, but I want to be far enough back that I'm out of the Duke's range.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty easily lose the Duke's range. He and Maggie set a fairly strong pace. And so it isn't more than a couple of minutes before, if you're just kind of slow walking the situation, that they are already up the terrace steps, although they do stop about halfway up and take a look around. Other than that, you'd be out of their range with still some ability to see where they're at.
And I'm trying to just play it calm, cool, stealthy as required.
Sure.
I'm fully aware of that. I'm also going to be using, if I can, I'm going to keep my eyes sharp, because there were 4 Turkish gentlemen here not too long ago, and we don't know where they went. So I want to see if I can spot them while Fraser is spotting Maggie and the Duke.
Sure. All right, so why don't you give me a stealth roll first to see how your stealth is going.
Quite poorly.
Okay.
That would be a 99.
Very well.
But let's try my spot hidden. Let's hope I can dredge something out of this debacle.
Sure.
As I trip over the cobbles. No. These dice are going in the garbage.
Isn't that like your second or third set of dice, Giles?
Yeah.
Nothing burns through dice faster than an Orient Express episode. So you begin shadowing Mr. Fraser and shadowing Maggie and the Duke as they're now just at this point in the story just kind of getting up to the higher tier where they're going to enter the cathedral. And you slip into the doorway of a nearby business. And when you do so, you have to push against the frame of this housing structure, the structure, to get your body back so that way you're not exposed. And when you do, you realize that the door is completely open. It's unlocked and it gives way. And you tumble backwards into this door. The door comes completely open. And unfortunately for you, this door had led to a basement stairway. And so you go head first down a stair. And so I'm going to deal you a little damage, and then you can hopefully pick yourself up in a moment or two. So I'm going to deal you 3 damage as you head backwards down a stair head first, crashing into rickety old wooden steps. Your body and head glance off a few bricks on the way down, and you raise an enormous commotion in a house, filled with young school children who were just about to go off to school.
Oh my goodness.
Would there be any chance, Mike, that I would possibly have seen or heard this calamitous event?
Impossible for you to miss it.
Oh dear.
It would have happened behind you, but the crash is something quite epic.
I will definitely step into a side street then.
Well, I can say on the plus side, the good news is I've distracted everyone's attention from Fraser to me.
It is very true.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the opportunity. Is there by any chance like a shop around, like maybe a tourist shop, a gift shop, or something that sells something like sun hats, like a Panama hat or something like that?
Give me a luck roll.
Yep, we'll do. Oh, that's an 11. That is that is not quite an extreme success, but it's certainly a hard success.
Yeah, there's one right over there.
Right, I will purchase one of those. I'm going to take my jacket off, and I'm going to stuff it into if I can find a little secluded corner of a little alleyway or something. Just bundle my jacket up and stuff it out the way. Put on a Panama hat. Open the top button of my shirt collar, and start meandering. Yes, I know, how risque. And start meandering up the road.
Very good. You do so. Simon, you are beset upon by the forms of several children who are very interested to see what has happened, because some strange man has tumbled in their house, and it is at that point where a much older woman, much older than them, steps into the doorway area as you're trying to kind of collect yourself with this head wound that you've picked up now. And she says something to you in French, and you're not entirely sure what it is.
I'm going to roll my French then.
Probably a good idea.
No. That is a no.
She says something else, and then the words start coming really rapidly. And so is the volume of her voice continues to increase.
Excusez-moi, ma'am.
A gentleman appears next to her, and he looks down at you as you're picking yourself up. And he seems just completely aghast at what's happened.
Parlez-vous anglais?
He shakes his head and no.
My apologies. I didn't mean to come in.
The woman steps out into the street. And Mr. Fraser, from your secluded position, you begin hearing a woman call for the police in French.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Unfortunately for you, Simon, this is what the fates have in store for you.
Oh, fate, you fickle thing. I am going to kind of despairingly look back at Simon, look towards Maggie, look back at Simon again, and then head towards Maggie. Because Simon's a big boy and he can take care of himself.
I can. This will be fun.
You do pass a couple of policemen, Mr. Fraser, who are heading back that way now. They collect themselves soon in the doorway.
I'm just on the saunter. I'm just...
The man who came into the doorway for you, Simon, helps you up the stairway as you're seeming to wobble a bit. And he proceeds to help you out the door.
Fair enough. Understood.
The woman looks entirely cross on the outside, her hands firmly on her hips, infuriated. She's some strange form of red and perhaps blue in the face with the just incredulous views.
I don't blame her.
When you finish collecting yourself for a moment there and try to get your bearings, there are now two uniformed men walking towards you.
Fair enough. I'm not going to resist.
They ask you in somewhat accented version of English, what happened? What are you doing?
I stepped into the doorway, monsieur, and out of the sun for a moment, and deciding whether I was going up the steps or back down the street to my hotel. And I didn't mean to lean against the door, but when it did, apparently it was unlocked, and I tumbled down the stairs. I did not mean to barge on their home, and I apologize to both of them and all their family.
One of the officers takes a look inside the doorway, and they have a short conversation, which you pick up on most of the notes of, which are, is there anything that's damaged? Are you hurt? That sort of thing. Pretty basic questions. And The man that helped you up the stairs doesn't seem to, he seems to shake his head that everything is fine. But the woman in question seems to be having a pretty terse conversation with one of the policemen. Why don't you give me a French roll?
No.
You're not certain what exactly she's accusing you of, but it seems something quite ungentlemanly she may be accusing you of. So the doorway that leads from their house into that back basement stairway, it seems to butt up against the kitchen perhaps, or another private area. And you're not really certain what's going on now, but you're beginning to get a little concerned because now both officers are looking at you a little differently.
Is there a problem, officers?
The officer that spoke to you before says, the lady of the house here says that she had not yet even gotten her apron on for the morning before you burst in the door.
I guarantee you I was not at plan. I was walking down the street here, so as I said, I ducked into that. I have never seen these people before in my life.
Yes, of that I am certain. Are you staying here locally?
Yes, this is the hotel I'm staying at, sir.
May I suggest you return to the hotel immediately?
Of course.
Very good. We may make an inquiry there if she pressures us to. You understand, of course.
I understand. I swear that I had no ill intentions. I have never seen these people before. And I also did not see her, as she says, without her apron on.
I should hope not. They take your information down and let you go. They try to explain a few things to both the man and woman of the house in that regard. Their kids kind of wander off towards school now, giggling at you. We'll leave you there for just a moment. So, Professor, you and Lady Elizabeth are just getting back to the hotel at this point. It has been a rather interesting early morning, and you're now kind of settled in that mid-morning, close to lunchtime section. And as you get back to the hotel, you see that in the courtyard of the hotel, Paul is reading the newspaper.
Good morning, Paul.
Oh, he stands up. Good morning, Lady Elizabeth. How are you?
I'm doing quite well, thank you. A nice, restful sleep. How are you?
Oh, well, I needed the extra sleep after our early arrival here, that's for sure.
Yes, I can imagine. I trust you are finding everything is to your liking. Are you enjoying the fresh Lausanne air?
Indeed. The terrace is quite invigorating if you take, he points out towards it. Lake Geneva is very special this time of year.
Yes, I've heard it's quite something. What are your plans for today, Paul?
Well, I wanted to make sure that I had a chance to see Mr. Fraser's hand. I was a little concerned with just making sure that everything was okay. But did you know where he's gotten off to?
He was checking in on an acquaintance, I believe, of some sort. He should be back, I don't know, fairly soon. I can't imagine that they'd get into that much trouble. Not in Switzerland.
You'd be surprised.
Yes, I suppose I would. But he'll be back at some point. Not too far in the future, I imagine. I would appreciate you taking a look at it, yes.
I just want to make sure everything is setting properly. It looked pretty bad the last time I saw it.
Yes, I'm a little bit concerned. But let me know if we need to visit another hospital to have it looked at if there's any problems.
Well, I mean, hopefully I can attend to most of the needs here without a hospital. But of course, if I see the need for one, I'll speak up and say. He turns to you, Richard. Professor, how was your morning so far?
Yes, I've had better mornings, but he looks down at his trousers. There's obviously a stain there. Bit of an argument with the coffee cup, I'm afraid, and a chair, and I think possibly the jacket was involved as well. But it's dried now. It'll probably stain. But, never mind.
Well, I don't know that I have any medical treatments for your clothing, sir, but hopefully the services here can attend to it.
Yes, hopefully.
It's been a bit of a chaotic morning. I think we're all just a bit tired from our journey.
Yes, I think maybe a lie down later would be in order, but
And a change of trousers.
absolutely. Yes.
Well, then, I shall leave the two of you to it. I'm going to see the sights. I've heard that there's a fantastic museum here.
Yes, we've heard things about the museum as well. I was rather curious.
Perhaps, if you have some time, I know you probably have so many letters to write and things to do.
I still have a bit of energy this morning, if you don't mind the company.
Oh, no, not at all. It would be
Professor?
fantastic.
Yeah, yes, that sounds like a splendid idea.
Perhaps change your trousers first.
Oh, yes, of course. Yes.
They might turn you away for being a vagrant otherwise.
Well, indeed. Yes, a museum. Yes, that'll be nice. Be like back home again.
Very well.
Excellent.
Shall we say maybe 20 minutes or so? Is that enough time for you to prepare?
Could do with slightly longer. I'd like to get the smell of coffee off my leg.
Suppose I'm not familiar with how long that takes. So he makes a little note in a book.
Well, we'll give you what time you need, Professor. I will have a seat here. And Paul, if you don't mind, I'd like to have a look at the whatever sections of the paper you finished.
Absolutely. He carefully prepares the sections he's finished and hands them over to you. We'll just wait right here for you, Professor.
Yes, certainly. I'll be as quick as I can.
Enjoy your trousers.
Richard toddles off.
So, Maggie, leaving the cathedral, you walk back down the terrace, and then he takes an immediate eastern turn and points over just across a street. You see that he's pointing at another large building.
The next stop has to be the museum and library.
Kind of motions with his hand in a grand gesture,
Oh, of course.
as if to give it more gravitas, because the building actually isn't that large.
I couldn't imagine stopping in a town and not visiting the library.
Oh, are you an avid reader?
Oh, yes, quite. In fact, I aspire to be a writer, even.
Truly. How fascinating. What would be your topic of choice?
Travel, of course. I know it is quite a trend of the times, but I would love to see exotic places and visit countries and cities that haven't been seen by many and be able to write about them.
I think it could be fascinating culturally for for America to learn perhaps a bit more of the Europe they'd left behind.
Oh, yes, of course, and I'm learning quite a bit while I'm here.
Where have you been so far?
Like I said, I started out in England visiting my aunt, and since then I've visited Paris, and now I'm here. So I'm still quite on the beginning end of my journey.
Well, I'm glad you had a chance to make a stop here. There's an awful lot of history here in the museum.
I can tell, and the cathedral as well, it seems.
Yeah, absolutely.
The museum, Maggie, is made up in a Italian Renaissance style. So there's you have a lot of tones of Romanesque columns and vaulted marble and that sort of thing. You get it has a very powerful presence just on its own. It's just that you're coming from the Gothic cathedral, so sometimes it's hard to, continue the wow factor as you go.
Yeah.
But you do get into the museum, and there's an amazing collection of Roman coins, medals, vases, and most of it seemingly ties back to this ancient settlement. And the Duke goes through a bit of a history rewind with you and talks about how Lausanne was once originally a Roman fort, and the area here was settled by Rome, and so some of these pieces were dug up likely from in and around the local area. And as you sweep through that building, you get to the library portion of it, which is just jaw-dropping. Like, this is the magic moment he was likely gesturing to outside.
Okay.
Right? So in this beautiful Italian Renaissance style of columns and the Roman era, you see tens of thousands of books, and they are all in perfect alignment.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like being inside the cogs of a machine here.
Yes.
And your footsteps echo on the marble as you walk through.
This certainly seems to be more well organized than the library I visited in Paris.
He gives you a slight cheeky grin.
The French. Their libraries.
Paris is, I think it's overspoken by travelers. They get wrapped up in perhaps the Louvre or perhaps the libraries, and they forget that the place needs still some refinement it lacks.
Yes, I could tell.
Well, it's become quite overrun with some of your fellow American writers.
I'm sure. But do you not run into many American writers here?
Well, I've just run into one now.
He seems to gesture to you.
Well, I hate to say it, but I certainly hope that I'm not the first of many.
I have spoken with other writers in my travels and also in and around my work, what I choose to do with my time, being a collector myself.
Yes, of course, and it sounded to me like you're interested in adding to your collection.
I believe we both are.
That may be true. Do you collect a variety of artifacts?
It's mostly books. I'm an avid collector of books and some statuary pieces. I've been at it now for a good 30 years.
You must have quite the collection then. Is it here in Lausanne?
My collection is at my estate here in Lausanne, yes.
I would love it if you could show me sometime. I haven't mentioned, but I also am a bit of an artist, and I was just thinking I may have to retrace our steps to do some sketches for my writings.
Oh, I'm sure that would be a good idea.
Maggie, why don't you give me a spot hidden roll
Okay.
at hard difficulty?
Actually, I'll use the digital dice because they.
Just going to go digital, folks.
They seem to be doing better. I'm one for one. Nope.
Oh, they're just lulling you into a false sense of security.
It's what as they do, as all dice do.
That is correct. So, Mr. Fraser, you have been tracking them fairly carefully, fairly quietly. You see them cross a bit of a bridge overpass that goes over a road, and they enter what appears to be a museum.
Mm-hmm. So once they go in through the doors of the museum, I will speedily make my way down the street across the square, and I'll enter the museum myself.
By the time you get there, they're probably down a long hallway through the museum they've walked, because it's mostly a rectangular building. It's open on the inside with these colonnades and architecture and whatnot where the museum portion is, but you can see that there's a deeper portion of the building basically upon entrance.
Okay, this is kind of perfect for me because I've got plenty of things to hide behind.
You do, but you'll also make me a spot hidden roll too.
Absolutely. So that is 17 under 78. So just a hard success in it. That's fine.
When you enter this area, kind of slip in behind one of these columns to continue your view of them. Just as you're doing that, just as you're getting set and taking that next 1-2 breaths to steady your heartbeat, you see about halfway down a Turkish gentleman in a red fez walk from behind one of these colonnades down deeper towards them.
Okay, that doesn't surprise me at all. I'm going to quicken my pace slightly whilst still trying to remain unobtrusive and make my way down towards the section of the museum that I believe Maggie is being taken to.
Okay. Yeah, this gentleman seems to be pretty well focused on getting down towards him, so you don't necessarily be challenged at this point.
Okay.
It gets a little dark in here, whether that be the sun goes behind some clouds or whatnot. But the both of you notice that the ambient light that comes through these windows, these massive windows that are on the left and the right-hand side of the building, seems to dim.
I did want to ask the Duke a question. Does it seem there's not a lot of... This isn't like a heavily trafficked area.
I would not say it's heavily trafficked. The thing to keep in mind that you've probably picked up on a little bit, just having walked through the city, is that it's a regular work day.
Yeah.
So kids are going to school. People are doing regular work things. It's not a weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's likely that the museums and library are going to be a little less populated.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, as you look around, just in this section, now you don't see more than maybe 2 or 3 people.
Yeah. So I must ask then, is with your extensive collection, is your interest in the scroll strictly as a collection of as a collector of history?
What else would it be?
I'm not entirely sure. I haven't seen it yet, so I'm not sure what's written on it, and one can only imagine.
You must know what it does, yes? Or what it's rumored to do?
What the scroll does?
Oh, indeed. You didn't come to this simply looking to buy a scroll out of nowhere. You know something.
Well, I was under the impression that there was possibly information on the scroll, not that the scroll did anything itself.
He turns left.
Okay. Maggie follows.
Walks a little bit deeper towards what looks like a side entrance to the library here.
Yeah.
Have you gathered your wind from the steps earlier?
Oh, yes, I believe I have. Thank you.
Wonderful. We have a slight uphill stroll, if you don't mind.
Of course.
Mr. Fraser, make another spot hidden roll, if you would, for me, sir.
Yes, I will indeed. That is a 93. That's a fail.
They move out of your sight. It looks like due east towards a section of the building that puts them out of the hallway perspective. So they move kind of camera for you, even as you're trying to carefully keep an eye on them. You see the Turkish gentleman in the fez seems to kind of step up his pace.
Okay, if they've moved out of my line of sight, then I will keep the Turkish gentleman in my eye, and I will step up my pace as well.
Okay. He makes it about probably 2 or 3 paces from the library entrance proper, and he stops. Like hard stops.
I will stop and make like I'm looking at an exhibit or something like that.
He turns
Just
and
nonchalantly
looks at you.
trying to read something on the exhibit.
He stares at you for a moment. You continue to read on the exhibit, but unmistakably you catch out of your eye on the other side of this hallway, all these colonnades, another befezed man walks from around the column and continues the pursuit. And the man who turned to stare at you doesn't move an inch. He continues to stare at you.
Okay. So if what I'm looking at is something that's in a glass cabinet, I'm going to push it over.
Okay. So you're looking at a Roman era vase. You push the whole case over?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a bit of a clatter and a fuss, and under the cover of that, make my way as fast as I can through into the other room.
Okay.
So it's a distraction, basically.
So you push the case.
And then move quickly.
I just want to be clear. If you push the case over, the vase will likely shatter.
Oh, I'm going to have to find something else. Is there a suit of armor anywhere around here? Something that won't break, but will make a lot of noise.
No, there's no suit of armor, but there's a Roman era shield on the wall, and if you could reach over that real quick and pluck it, and maybe take it off its moorings, it'd make a terrible clatter, but the shield won't likely be damaged at all.
Right. As long as I can check that I'm not being seen when I do this, then I'll try that. If I think somebody's going to see me do that and it's just going to be really obvious, then I'll forego that, and I'll come up with another plan, another equally absurd plan.
Let's see here. I'll say you can get to it for sure.
All right, then.
You don't see any other people in your immediate area that are going to definitely see you do it, other than this man in the fez, obviously.
Right, so he's watching me, is he? Okay, I'm gonna do that, make a big clattering noise, and then I'm going to go over to the man in the fez, and I'm just going to start waving my hands in the air and chatting, "What do you think you're doing, man? For goodness sake, be careful!"
Okay. So you pull the shield a bit, and it clatters. Maggie, you have not gotten out of the doorway, this side east exit, yet, when something metallic clatters behind you.
I would imagine Maggie would be startled. It's quiet. We're in a library and something startles.
Yeah, it sounds like a clap of thunder when it hits the marble floor.
Oh, yeah. Maggie almost certainly jumps in. Maybe, clutches her pearls.
Okay. The Duke turns.
So I'm just going to be shouting and making a fuss. Yeah, it's a priceless work of art, man. Be careful, you clumsy buffoon. And just try and gather everyone's attention focused onto these guys in fezzes. Well, this particular one, anyway.
Sure. You definitely get people's attention on this gentleman here. You see him move his arm from his hip area. His right hand is empty, but as if he was likely going for something, but your massive clatter of noise has stopped that proceeding. The other gentleman who ran the other way, the other fezzed gentleman, has continued. And as he continues, he comes into view of you, Maggie. So when you turn at the sound, a moment or two later, just a few simple heartbeats.
Yep.
A reasonably well-dressed Turkish gentleman with a fez on his head steps into view.
Yeah. Maggie plays dumb. Maggie doesn't want to appear alarmed by seeing Turkish gentlemen at all.
Sure.
I want to be alarmed. I'm alarmed by the situation at hand.
Why don't you give me a power roll? We'll see how you can keep your cool.
But I don't want to be... Okay, we're back to the dice.
Yes. She's back. She's giving up the electronic.
Oh, heck yeah. 10 under 75. It's an extreme success.
So you keep very cool under pressure. The Duke seemingly does the same. So this Turkish gentleman, he comes into the space as if he's very excited or eager to do something. And as he sees you and the Duke there together turned and looked at him, he cools very quickly. Very quickly.
Yeah.
And the Duke almost tilts his head as if to wonder as to what this man's doing. And then he says, "Come along, Margaret." And he pats your hand.
Of course. Dreadful noise.
And you two exit out the east entrance with this gentleman's gaze boring its way into your back. So I'll leave you two there for the moment.
Okay.
Simon, you get back to the hotel, a little dejected and frustrated probably. But you walk into the main lobby area where Paul and Lady Elizabeth are. And it seems that the professor has gone missing for some reason.
Afternoon, Paul. Lady E.
Ah, Mr. Griffith. What brings you back here alone?
Paul, you mind taking a look at my head?
Why?
I banged it on some stairs.
Oh my goodness, he stands up. Yes, let me collect my bag. And he steps.
Let me sit down and I'll tell you what's happening out there.
Who won, you or the stairs?
Well, that's an interesting thing. It ain't over yet.
Yes. Got a personal vendetta now?
No, the cops are involved.
Oh, dear Lord.
So, Miss Maggie is off with the Duke, and Jim is following them, and I was following Jim to keep the Turks off him, and I was in a doorway keeping watch, and the door wasn't locked, and I fell down the stairs, and now they're accusing me, at least the woman is, of spying on her Desabia.
Woman? What woman?
The woman who apparently lived in the residence I fell down the stairs of.
And did you spy on her in a state of undress, Mr. Griffith? Lady is currently very amused, like very obviously amused at this whole situation.
I can't remember how many steps I fell down, let alone how many people were in the residence. There was no spying going on. Besides the fact that my mama would have beat me upside the head with a frying pan if I ever did anything like that.
Your mother sounds like a formidable woman. But the police are involved?
Well, apparently because the woman told them I was watching her, which I was not. So now I'm going to have to stay here till they come by and I have to make a statement. And I may have to call some of my contacts.
Oh my. You have had a busy morning, haven't you?
Yeah, this is the morning I got up on the wrong side of bed.
So, where are Miss Bellinger and Mr. Fraser? At least where were they when you left them?
They went by the church, and after that I have no idea, because I've been occupied.
Yes, well, Mr. Fraser can take care of himself in a pickle, so I'm sure nothing is going to go terribly wrong in that situation. We'll just have to wait for them to come back.
Miss Maggie's a big girl. She can take care of herself.
Yes, I'm sure she can. She can talk her way out of any situation, I imagine.
Paul, how bad is it?
He looks it over with his medical supplies. Oh, it seems like you've really bumped it pretty hard. Let me put some gauze on it, and I'm going to have to dig that piece of mortar out, but you'll live.
Do I have a goose egg?
Just a bit.
Perhaps you'd better take things a little easy for the rest of the day, Mr. Griffith, especially if you have to wait for the police to come by. But also don't want you injuring yourself any further.
Well, I think I'm going to have to make a couple phone calls.
Yes, well, just no more spying on women in a state of dishabille, and you'll be fine.
I don't do that!
You need to learn to have a sense of humor, Mr. Griffith.
Professor, you arrive with full trousers. At least clean ones, at least.
Well, that's...
Afternoon, Professor.
Yes. Oh, Simon, what are you doing here? You were following Maggie, weren't you?
I was following Fraser, who was following Maggie, and I fell down some stairs. Now the police are on me, and now it's just, I'm just gonna go. This is why people drink, right?
Occasionally, yes.
Yes, weren't you following Maggie?
Well, first, you see, Fraser was following Maggie, and I was following Fraser because there was those Turkish gentlemen who were around earlier, right?
Yes.
So I reckon that I'm here to keep them off of Fraser's back while he's keeping his eye on the Duke and Miss Maggie there. Now, I step into a doorway, being all nonchalant, trying to trail them and keep indiscreet, and the door in the doorway was unlocked. And I took a tumble down the stairs into the basement residence there, banging myself down on the way, and the woman there accused me of staring at her in her whatever. She claims I was ogling her in a bad way, and
in a state of undress, no less.
Oh.
Obviously I was ogling Mr. Fraser. Now,
I see. Are you sure Mr. Fraser is okay with following Maggie? Will he be enough?
I didn't have a choice, Professor. There were two gendarmes, policemen called, and I had to be respectful, so A, we don't blow our cover, and B, there's not any problems with all of us. So I came back here to the hotel. I may have to make a statement, and I will have to make a couple phone calls to go ahead and take care of this situation.
You do seem to have somewhat of a bump on your head. You can see it.
Yeah, it's bleeding. These things happen. I mean,
Paul, what do you make of this?
It looks like he fell down the stairs, Professor. He continues to bandage his head. Hold still.
I'm sure he'll be fine. Just, well, Paul's the medical expert here, but from what I recall, you shouldn't go to sleep for a little while with a bump on the head. But I'm sure you'll be fine otherwise.
can I have a glass of milk and maybe a croissant or two?
I will attend to you some food shortly. Professor, Lady Elizabeth, perhaps you would just head on to the museum without me. I need to make sure that he doesn't have any continuing issues after the fall. And
That he doesn't continue his vendetta against the stairs.
well, as you say.
Mm-hmm. Very well. Come along, Professor.
Yes, I'm quite interested to take a look.
You've got a new outfit. Can't waste it on just sitting around the hotel.
No, I think I might have to give coffee a miss today.
Yes, it seems that Mr. Griffith has a problem with stairs and you have a problem with coffee. I wonder what Mr. Fraser's having a problem with today. Just seems the elements are out to get us.
Yes, it does seem to be one of those days.
And on that note, Mr. Fraser, you are still somewhat close to this man who, even after all of your scene making, very effective scene making, he hasn't walked off. He's right there with you, probably a good 4 or 5 paces.
Yeah, what I'm hoping to achieve is to get a group of people to be reacting to this kerfuffle, gather around him, focus their attention on him, so that he's going to have to make some sort of effort to get away from them, whilst I slip round after where this. I'm hoping assuming I've seen this the other Turkish gentleman.
You absolutely have seen the other one,
because now he's my priority. If I've managed to get this guy embroiled in some sort of business with other either people who work in the museum or just other sightseers or whatever, I use that as a way to sort of move away and past, because he won't be able to do anything to me without being seen by a lot of people. So I'm hoping to use that as a way of moving past and follow through the other guy.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that the museum goers that are here, and then also the staff that are here, once they hear this massive clatter of Roman shield, it splits their day in half for sure. That's not something they normally hear here. So they would be on top of the situation really quickly. The museum is a treasure of Lausanne, and the thought that that something is amiss with the pieces are here are definitely it. So he gets descended on pretty quickly by a group of people, museum goers and staff members, who are all too happy to take your urging in that direction.
I will just move away as quickly as I can, as soon as I can, and follow after the other one.
Getting to the next one is fairly easy for you. He hasn't moved much from the position you thought he was going to the last time. You arrive in his area, in his presence of sorts, as the looks like there's east doors here at this museum, as they've closed. Now they have some bits of glass in them, and you're fairly sharp-eyed enough to be able to see through the glass and see this, the blue pomp and circumstance that the Duke has kind of bathed himself in. So he's just left with Maggie, but that leaves you in this mostly empty and echoey library with this other Turkish gentleman who, much the same as his previous cohort, is relaxing his arm from underneath his suit coat.
So when you say he's relaxing his arm from underneath his suit coat, does it look like he was about to draw a weapon and he's not anymore?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the body language that you get.
And as far as I can tell, Maggie and the Duke have stepped out of an exit to the museum and are now in the street outside.
They are, yeah.
Right. Okay. So in that case, what I want to do is I want to swiftly move back out of the line of sight of this other Turkish gentleman, out through another exit to the museum, and make my way to the as quickly as I can to the exit where Maggie and the Duke left. And I'm hoping that my understanding of the layout of the museum and the street plan is going to allow me to do that.
Yeah, it will. So you'll have to go out one of the west doors here in the library and then basically wrap around the northern portion of the library terrace area.
Swift jog, I think.
Okay.
To get around before they disappear off a side street somewhere and see if I can catch them.
So, Maggie, the Duke and you continue your pace now that the business with this library is over. Yeah. It is a fairly comfortable walk beginning up to up a hill. And the Duke explains to you that there is a wonderful overlook, a marvelous belvedere that overlooks Lake Geneva. And we'll be able to see alpine vistas in every direction. It's one of the most beautiful places, and if you're touring Lausanne, you really must see it.
Well, of course, that sounds fantastic.
As he continues up the walk with you, I want you to take a spot hidden roll to see if maybe you catch sight of Mr. Fraser hurriedly making his way around the northern edge of the library museum.
I 42 over 31, so no.
You're free to push a roll or spend luck should you so choose.
No.
Okay, fair enough. That's all right. So the two of you head on up. You cross another walking bridge that leads to a street level, and then that street goes. He takes a sidewalk that essentially runs up a fair grade towards this overlook. And by the time you're over that walking path, over the overpass, Mr. Fraser, you sight her and the Duke. Looks like they're walking up a hill north of town.
Okay, I'm going to continue with my discreet observation and pursuit.
Okay, you continue as the two of you reach the walk probably goes for a good 20 minutes. It's along this same path, Mr. Fraser, and it's through some very beautiful sections of Lausanne. But it seems the Duke has something very specific he wants to show you, at least from what he continues to intimate about. He talks about the Italian Alps. He'd like to show you the tops of those. So when you get to this overlook, it's a large stone area that's been placed here in Lausanne, and this belvedere is fairly well worn. Although it's not in disrepair by any means, the stonework and the small columns here that make up the railing give you something quite secure to take in this breathtaking view. And it is something spectacular. There are mountains bordering all of your vision now.
Oh, wow, you were quite right. This is, I don't believe that there are words for this view.
He points into the distance in one of the mountains and says,
"Just beyond there, Italy. It's fascinating."
What's fascinating about it?
The two countries are so close, yet culturally so far away.
Yes, I could see how two would be directly next to each other, but separated by seemingly a vast distance.
What will it take to have you perhaps bow out of this experience tonight?
Well, I don't necessarily need to purchase the scroll. I was mostly interested in just reading it and having a look at it, but it sounds like I may have misunderstood its purpose. You seem to say it has that it does something. I was more interested in what information it contained, specifically in regards to the location of some pieces of the Sedefkar simulacrum.
I will tell you two very important things. The scroll is far more than that. And if you wish to peer at its nature, you'll have to outbid me to get it.
Well, I'm not sure how myself and my traveling companions will manage. I mean, I can tell in my time spent with you that that it certainly means a lot to you, and also I'm sure you have more means than we do.
The only way to find out would be to meet me at the 7:30 club around 8 o'clock, yes?
Yes, of course. Regardless, I do look forward to a bit of a friendly competition. I will try not to drive the bidding price up for you too much.
Wonderful. Then, would you feel comfortable to find your way back to the city center?
Yes, I'm sure that I can manage.
Then I shall leave you with the Alps.
Yes, of course.
He gives you a very respectful bow in his finery, and he kind of trundles off back down the trail.
Yeah, Maggie probably would sketch a picture of the Alps here, because I don't just want to walk away. I'll hang back for a little bit.
No, it is definitely worthwhile. Yeah, it's definitely an experience likely that she would picture. Hopefully, maybe she'll send something to Aunt Edith at that point.
Lady Elizabeth really don't want that scroll, though.
Mr. Fraser, you do make your way up the final portion of the path, but I'd like you to make me one more stealth roll, because coming back down the path at some point is going to be a very large blue duke.
A large blue duke.
Yes, as opposed to the thin white duke.
That is an extreme success on my stealth. 09 under 69.
Yeah, you become part of the foliage, part of the greenery temporarily as the duke passes you on the path. Somewhat concerningly, he is alone.
I'm going to kind of take a moment to see what direction he's going. I'm going to head up the path towards where he's come from. In a little bit of haste, I think, just out of a slight concern that I have perhaps arrived a little too late.
Your fears are dashed a bit as you catch sight of Maggie on the belvedere there, probably just resting against some of the stone columns to ease her legs after a long walk, and she seems to be sketching in a book.
I will take a moment to compose myself. Yes, walk over.
Oh, Mr. Fraser, it's quite nice to see you here.
As soon as I see you, I stop and just kind of compose myself and walk over towards you.
He's missing a few things, though, Maggie. He's missing a well-fitting tie. He's missing his coat. He has a Panama hat on. Oh, who is this
Miss
man?
Ballinger, admiring the view of Italy, I see.
Hello, Mr. Yeah, it's very beautiful. That was quite the commotion you caused back in the library.
Oh, you noticed that, did you? Well.
I don't think many people didn't notice it.
Well, one can be so terribly clumsy from time to time. How was your conversation with the Duke?
It was quite interesting. He seems to be very interested in history, but more importantly, he believes that the scroll doesn't hold information. It seems it instead holds some sort of power.
Very interesting. Did you happen to notice any other gentlemen dogging your footsteps?
No, of course not. Just a lovely stroll with the Duke.
Well, I think you probably should know, Miss Ballinger, that I believe the Duke to be a very dangerous man.
I have no doubt about that.
Well, there were a number of Turkish gentlemen around the taxidermist shop, and in fact there were two of them that appeared to be keeping a very close eye on yourself when you were in his company. I believe these men work for the Duke.
Well, how do you know they weren't keeping an eye on the Duke?
Because earlier on I saw him exchange a brief glance with one or two of them, and they appeared to be... they appear to be operating under his guidance.
Well, that does make sense. To be honest, Mr. Fraser, I was a little concerned that he was going to push me over this railing here. But he does seem interested in a friendly bidding war for the scroll, though I worry we don't have quite enough money to outprice him.
What kind of money is he talking?
Well, he didn't put out any numbers, but he does seem to be a collector of old writings and artifacts, and I get the impression that he is quite wealthy.
Well, he's a duke, isn't he? So I would imagine so, but that puts us in a very difficult position.
Yes, and I was interested in... I told him I was interested in merely seeing the scroll. I didn't need to purchase it, but he seemed set on us trying to possibly see if we could buy it out from under him, though based on our conversation here, Mr. Fraser, I'm a little more concerned that even if we did, it would somehow end up in his hands.
I wonder, are his goals somewhat similar to our own?
It didn't seem to be... I brought up the simulacrum, and it didn't seem to pique his interest.
You mentioned the simulacrum to him. Was that altogether wise?
Sometimes I feel like honesty is the best policy.
Discretion is the better part of valor.
Not always when you're trying to get information out from people, but I felt that we would be able to maybe know his intentions more based on how he reacted to it, and really he seemed more interested in some sort of power that the scroll holds. He seemed to think that I was unaware of the true abilities of the scroll. He said that it does something.
Oh, really? And did he specify what?
No.
So in this exchange, do you feel that you gained more information from him than he gained from you? Or vice versa?
I feel like it was maybe an equal trade-off. But sometimes you have to share some secrets in order to gain some secrets.
Well, I'm not entirely sure that I would altogether agree with that philosophy. However, I must say, Miss Ballinger, if you don't mind me making so bold, I would be very, very cautious of stepping out on your own, given the nature of the undertaking that we have, without being assured that there is someone watching your back. Luckily, in this instance, myself and...
Oh, how do you know I wasn't assured?
Merely because we did not discuss it before.
I was quite confident that one of you would.
Even so, I would take it as a personal favour to myself if you do decide to strike forth on your own, as you are wont to do, that you let me know your intentions before doing so. Forewarned is forearmed, as they say.
But I do believe that possibly Mr. Wellington is our better route for the scroll.
Yes, perhaps if we can impress upon him that it is a dangerous thing to be handing into the hands of the Duke, then we shall have to take that as it comes.
Would you like to escort me back down, or do you think...
I would be delighted, Miss Ballinger.
I am new to the espionage game.
Well, it is a dangerous game to play, Miss Ballinger. A very dangerous game. And many of those who have played it have come a cropper.
And Maggie will pack up her notebook.
And Mr. Fraser will offer his arm.
Yeah, Maggie will take his arm so we can walk down.
I do have one very quick stop to make on the way down to retrieve my jacket.
All right, we will leave the episode right there. So thank you all for joining us so much. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you to our Patreon backers who are helping this show move into a bit of a new territory. So by the time you hear this episode, you'll likely already know that by August 2021, we are moving to weekly episodes with the Horror on the Orient Express show, something we're super excited about. And we'll be giving you more. So to that end, have a wonderful day or evening wherever you are. Thank you for your time and thank you for listening very much. We will see you next time.